Cheap, filthy trash? Those were the words that came out of my daughter's mouth, my own daughter, as she picked up the gift her little girl made for her birthday and threw it back in her face. The room went silent. Her husband looked away. Her in-laws laughed. And I just stood there frozen, watching my granddaughter's tiny hands bleed from the splinters of the box she spent weeks carving with love. I didn't shout. I didn't cry. I just whispered, "So this is who you've become." Then I went home and pulled back everything, the villa I bought for her family, the boutique I funded, and the BMW I was about to gift her. "From now on," I said, "you're on your own." She thought I was bluffing. Until the lights in her villa went out. Until the BMW disappeared. Until every luxury she worshipped vanished. Before I take you through everything that happened, please like this video, subscribe to Revenge Fury, and tell me where you're watching from, because what you're about to hear isn't gossip. It's what happens when pride destroys love. My name is Eleanor Blake. I'm 62 years old, a retired architect, widowed, self-made, and proud. And I need you to understand something before I tell you this story. I built everything with these hands. No inheritance. No help. Just deadlines and sleepless nights, and the kind of determination that comes from having nothing to fall back on. When my husband died 15 years ago, I could have crumbled. Instead, I worked. 18-hour days designing commercial buildings, residential complexes, anything that would pay the bills and secure my daughter's future. I put Megan through private school, paid for her college, funded her wedding, bought her first home, and even gave her the capital to start her own boutique. I thought I was teaching her the value of hard work by showing her what it could provide. What I didn't realize was that I was teaching her to expect everything without earning anything. The more she gained, the less she remembered who helped her rise. It started small, forgotten thank yous, missed calls, excuses for why she couldn't visit. Then it became something darker. She began to look at me like I was an embarrassment, like my calloused hands and practical clothes were somehow beneath the life she now lived. But I told myself it was just a phase. Young people need to find their independence, right? They need to feel like they've built their own success. So I stayed quiet. I kept giving. I kept hoping that somewhere underneath all that newfound sophistication, my little girl was still there. I was wrong. When Megan married into the Whitmore family, everything changed. These people had old money, the kind that comes with marble floors and trust funds, and the unshakable belief that wealth equals worth. And my daughter, desperate to fit in, began to shed every trace of where she came from. She stopped calling me mom in public. Instead, I became Eleanor, or just retired, when introductions were necessary. Never the woman who built this life for me, or my mother who sacrificed everything. Just retired. Like I was some distant acquaintance she tolerated out of politeness. But the worst part wasn't how she treated me. It was how she treated Lily. My granddaughter was 7 years old and already walking on eggshells around her own mother. Megan criticized everything. Lily's clothes weren't expensive enough. Her manners weren't refined enough. Her interests weren't sophisticated enough. The child couldn't breathe without being told she was doing it wrong. I watched this beautiful, sensitive little girl shrink into herself, becoming quieter and more cautious with each passing month. She would flinch when her mother approached. She would apologize for things that weren't mistakes. She was learning to hate herself, one correction at a time. The only place Lily felt safe was with me. In my workshop, learning to use tools and create things with her hands. I taught her woodworking, how to measure twice and cut once, how to sand with the grain, how to see potential in raw materials. But more than that, I taught her that her efforts mattered, that her creations had value, that she had worth beyond what others thought of her. I was watching history repeat itself. The same emotional wounds I once carried, she was now receiving from her mother. And I couldn't stand it. But I still believed Megan would come around. I thought maybe if I just continued to be patient, to be supportive, to be the grandmother Lily needed, eventually my daughter would remember what love looked like. I thought blood meant something. I thought family meant something. I was wrong about that too. The day everything changed was Megan's 35th birthday party. She had planned this elaborate celebration at the villa, the one I had purchased for her family as a wedding gift 3 years prior. The guest list read like a social register: her husband's business partners, the country club wives, photographers from the lifestyle magazines that occasionally featured her boutique. Luxury cars lined the circular driveway. Champagne flowed from crystal fountains. Everything was perfectly curated, perfectly pristine, perfectly soulless. I arrived with Lily, who had been staying with me for the weekend. She was clutching a small wooden jewelry box in her hands, something we had worked on together for weeks. The child had measured every dimension herself, sanded it until her little arms ached, and painted delicate flowers around the edges. She had even carved a tiny heart into the lid with her mother's initials. "It's perfect, Grandma," she had whispered when we finished it. "Mom's going to love it." I should have known better. I should have seen the signs. But hope makes fools of us all. We found Megan holding court near the poolside bar, surrounded by her usual circle of admirers. She was wearing a designer dress that cost more than most people's rent, her hair and makeup professionally done, her smile wide and artificial. Lily approached quietly, the way children do when they're not sure of their welcome. She tugged gently on her mother's dress and held up the box. "Happy birthday, Mom," she said, her voice barely above a whisper. The conversation around us slowed. People turned to watch this sweet moment between mother and daughter. I felt a surge of anticipation, thinking maybe this would be the gesture that reminded Megan what really mattered. Megan looked down, took the box, and opened it. Her face went through a series of expressions: confusion, distaste, and finally, disgust. And then she laughed. Not a delighted laugh. Not a touched laugh. A mocking, cruel laugh that cut through the party noise like a knife. "What is this?" she said, loud enough for everyone to hear. "Cheap? Filthy trash? You think I'd use something like this?" The words hung in the air like poison. Gasps rippled through the crowd. Her husband looked away in embarrassment. Her in-laws, those supposedly refined people, began to snicker and whisper among themselves. But it was Lily's face that broke my heart. The hope drained out of her eyes, replaced by shame so deep it made my chest ache. She reached for the box, as if she could somehow take back the moment, take back the gift, take back her trust. That's when Megan threw it. She literally threw her daughter's handmade gift onto the marble floor, where it shattered into pieces. The sharp edge of the broken hinge cut across Lily's palm as she instinctively tried to catch it. Blood began to seep through her small fingers. The party went completely silent. Even the background music seemed to stop. I looked at my daughter, this person I had raised, supported, loved unconditionally for 35 years, and I didn't recognize her. In that moment, I saw my own reflection, not as her mother, but as her mirror. She had become the kind of person I had raised her never to be. She had become someone who could look at pure love and call it trash. I didn't shout. I didn't create a scene. I simply walked over to Lily, gently wrapped her bleeding hand in my handkerchief, and whispered, "Come on, sweetheart. Let's go home." As we left, I heard Megan's nervous laughter starting up again, heard her making excuses to her guests, heard her trying to turn the moment into a joke about children and their little projects. But I also heard the silence that followed. The uncomfortable shifting. The way conversations didn't quite resume their previous energy. Even her precious social circle knew they had witnessed something ugly. That night, after I had bandaged Lily's hand and tucked her into bed, I sat in my study with a folder I rarely opened. It was labeled Megan's Accounts and contained every legal document, every financial arrangement, every gift I had given her over the years. I had never wanted this moment. I had hoped I would never need to make these calculations. But as I sat there, thinking about my granddaughter's bloody palm and my daughter's cruel laughter, I realized something important. Love without respect becomes abuse disguised as loyalty. One by one, I withdrew my support. I called my lawyer and instructed him to halt the villa title transfer I had been processing. The house was still in my name, and it was going to stay that way. I contacted the boutique landlord and canceled the lease that I had been paying for 2 years. Let Megan figure out how to fund her own business dreams. I called the BMW dealership and told them to hold the paperwork for the car I had planned to surprise her with for her birthday. Some gifts needed to be earned. Finally, I removed Megan's name from my will. Every penny I had planned to leave her would now go into a trust for Lily's education, with the stipulation that Megan would have no access to it. As I signed the last document, I felt something I hadn't experienced in years: relief. For too long, I had confused enabling with loving. I had thought that providing for her meant I was being a good mother. But good mothers teach their children to value what matters. And what matters isn't marble floors or designer dresses or the approval of people who measure worth by wealth. What matters is how you treat the people who love you when no one is watching. She called love cheap. Now let her learn the real cost of pride. The fall began within days. The boutique's unpaid bills, utilities, inventory, staff salaries started piling up immediately. Without my automatic payments covering the overhead, Megan discovered she was running a business, not playing dress-up in a pretty store. The landlord locked the doors within a week. The villa mortgage went into default when my monthly transfers stopped. Megan had never seen the actual payment amounts. Money had simply appeared in the account each month like magic. Now the magic was gone, and reality was a $6,000 monthly payment she couldn't cover. The BMW she had been expecting for her birthday never materialized. Worse, when she couldn't keep up with the payments on her current car, it was repossessed from the country club parking lot in front of all her friends. My phone rang constantly. 14 missed calls in 2 days. 6 voicemails that I deleted without listening to. Text messages that grew increasingly frantic as her world began to collapse. I answered none of them. Her husband's family, those paragons of old money sophistication, began to whisper. How could someone who appeared so successful not manage her own finances? Where was the family wealth they had assumed she possessed? Why was she suddenly asking them for loans? The same people who had laughed at Lily's gift began to laugh at Megan's desperation. Her carefully curated image crumbled as quickly as it had been built. Fair-weather friends vanished when the invitations stopped coming. Her social media, once filled with pictures of luxury and leisure, went dark. You can't buy grace with money. You either have it or you lose everything trying to fake it. 3 weeks after the birthday party, Megan showed up at my gate. She looked terrible. Her hair unwashed, her designer clothes wrinkled and stained, her makeup smeared from crying. She stood outside my security system, pressing the intercom button over and over. Mom, please. We need to talk. You can't just cut me off like this. I watched her through the monitor for several minutes before responding. Part of me wanted to let her in, to hold her like I had when she was small, to fix her problems the way I always had. But that part of me had learned a painful lesson about the difference between helping and enabling. I pressed the intercom button. Hello, Megan. Mom. Thank God. Open the gate. We need to talk about this misunderstanding. There's no misunderstanding, I said quietly. You made your feelings perfectly clear. What are you talking about? I never said anything about you. No, I agreed. You said something about love. You called it cheap and filthy trash. And then you threw it away. Silence on the intercom. Then, that was different. That was just. Lily's little project was inappropriate for the setting. You don't understand the social pressures. You're right, I interrupted. I don't understand how someone could look at their child's love and call it inappropriate. More silence. Then anger. You ruined my life, she screamed. Everything I worked for, everything I built, you destroyed it all. That's when I opened the front door and walked halfway to the gate. Not close enough to touch, not far enough to seem afraid. "No, Megan," I said, my voice carrying across the yard. "You ruined your own life when you mocked the only person who still loved you unconditionally, your child." She started to argue, started to explain, started to make excuses. But then she stopped. Her eyes had found something over my shoulder. Lily was playing quietly in my backyard, happy, safe, building something with wooden blocks. She looked up and waved at her mother through the fence, her bandaged hand still visible. For just a moment, I saw something flicker across Megan's face. Recognition, maybe. Or regret. But it was gone as quickly as it appeared. "She belongs with me," Megan said, but her voice had lost its edge. "She belongs with someone who thinks her love is precious, not trash," I replied. I turned and walked back to the house. Behind me, I heard Megan calling my name, pleading, threatening, crying. But I didn't turn around. I closed the door and turned the lock. The chain clicked into place. That night, I called my lawyer again. The final collapse came gradually, then all at once. Without the boutique income she had never actually earned, without the villa she couldn't afford, without the cars she couldn't pay for, Megan moved into a small apartment across town. Her husband, faced with the reality of her actual financial situation, began divorce proceedings. His family, who had welcomed her when they thought she brought money to the marriage, now treated her like a cautionary tale. She was alone in a way she had never been before, truly alone, without safety nets or enablers or people cleaning up her mistakes. But Lily thrived. The school therapist called me after a month to say that the change in the child was remarkable. She was calmer, more expressive, less anxious. Her grades improved. She made friends. She laughed again. When the school's art fair arrived, I attended as Lily's guardian. She had entered a wooden jewelry box in the crafts competition, not unlike the one she had made for her mother, but more sophisticated, more confident. The title card read, "Respect by Lily Whitmore." She won first place. I watched her accept her ribbon, watched her beam with pride, watched her understand that her efforts had value. Around us, other parents admired her work, asking about technique and design. She explained each step with the confidence of someone who knew her worth. Megan didn't attend. Some lessons come wrapped in pain, I thought as I watched my granddaughter shine. But they still arrive right on time. 6 months later, a letter arrived in my mailbox. Handwritten on cheap stationery, not the expensive personalized cards Megan used to favor. "Dear Mom," it began. "I see it now. You were right about everything. I destroyed everything you built for me, everything you gave me, everything that mattered. I was cruel and ungrateful and wrong. Please forgive me. Please give me another chance. I promise I've learned my lesson." I read it twice, sitting in my kitchen with my morning coffee. Then I carried it to the fireplace and watched it burn. Forgiveness is free, but trust is earned. And I'm done giving credit to debtors of the heart. The letter was followed by others. Phone calls I didn't answer. Attempts to visit that I ignored. Each message more desperate than the last. Each promise more elaborate. She had learned to say the right words, but words are cheap. Cheaper, even, than the love she had once thrown away. I had spent 35 years teaching her that actions have no consequences, that love is unconditional, that someone would always be there to catch her when she fell. It was time for her to learn different lessons. It's been a year now since that birthday party. A year since I watched my granddaughter's blood stain the marble floor of a house I had bought. A year since I realized that sometimes the most loving thing you can do is stop enabling someone's worst impulses. Lily lives with me now, officially and permanently. The courts agreed that a child needs stability, love, and respect, things Megan had proven unable to provide. My granddaughter has flourished in ways that break my heart and heal it simultaneously. We work together in my shop every afternoon. She's learning advanced techniques now, dovetail joints and wood burning and intricate carving. But more than that, she's learning to trust her own judgment, to value her own efforts, to believe that love is something you show through actions, not words. Our mornings are peaceful. Coffee for me, hot chocolate for her, quiet conversation about plans for the day. No criticism, no impossible standards, no walking on eggshells. Just the simple pleasure of being with someone who values what you bring to the world. People ask me if I regret cutting Megan off. If I miss my daughter. If I think I was too harsh. The answer is complicated. I grieve for the relationship we could have had. I grieve for the woman she might have become if I had set boundaries earlier, if I had taught her respect along with generosity. I grieve for the mother she could have been to Lily. But I don't regret choosing my granddaughter over my daughter's comfort. I don't regret refusing to enable behavior that was destroying an innocent child. I don't regret teaching both of them that love requires respect, that family means more than blood, that some prices are too high to pay. You don't cut off family out of hatred. You do it out of survival. Because love that isn't respected becomes abuse disguised as loyalty. I've learned that family isn't who shares your blood, it's who shares your values. It's who sees your gifts as precious instead of trash. It's who treats your love like the treasure it is, not like something they're entitled to take and take and take without giving anything back. Megan thought she could have everything without earning anything. She thought love was a bottomless well she could draw from without ever filling. She thought respect was optional when you had money and status and the right connections. She was wrong about all of it. Now she knows what I knew all along, that there's nothing more expensive than losing love. That once you've thrown away something precious, you can't always get it back. That some mistakes cost more than money. They cost everything that really matters. She once called love cheap. Now she knows nothing is more expensive than losing it. And that's a lesson worth 10,000 words.